That was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
The day that Sharon Needles was crowned was an occasion that, for the most part, was celebrated by the great majority of the fan base at the time. Little did we know that in the upcoming future, she'd go on to become one of the biggest mistakes when it came to a queen directly attached to the RuPaul's Drag Race legacy. This is an example of how, in the long run, the right winner was not chosen. But what exactly does it mean for the greater picture? And who are some of the individuals that got crowned, or in some cases were almost crowned, but would end up being a part of a list of shunned contestants that nobody really wants to celebrate anymore given the events that happened from them since then? But before we start,
do you ever have that one habit that's just there? Like your hand moves before your brain even clocks in? Yeah, that was me. Then I found this little guy, and honestly, it's become my new go-to fidget / flavored air device. It's called Fume, and no, it's not a vape, not an e-cig, and not anything with chemicals. It's literally just flavored air. Here's the thing, breaking habits is hard because your body loves patterns, but instead of trying to fight it, Fume lets you swap it. So instead of grabbing for something I shouldn't, I grab this. What I love is that it gives you that satisfying ritual, something to reach for, hold, fidget with, but it's totally natural. No vapor, no nicotine, just flavor. Think herbal tea instead of soda. My personal favorite flavor is crisp mint. It's super refreshing, feels clean, and keeps me focused when I'm writing or editing. But they've got others too. Cinnamon hard, orange vanilla, black licorice if you're feeling bold. So here's the deal. Over 500,000 people have already added Fume to their daily routine, and I totally get why. If you want to try it yourself, go to tryfume.com/GreenGay or just scan the QR code on the screen and use code GreenGay to get a free Fume topper when you order the Journey Pack. Seriously, it's the perfect step to ditching the bad stuff and keeping the good vibes. Now, let's begin.
When you think about the first all-winner season, it's hard not to imagine what could have been. Since the start of the franchise, the concept of having what many consider to be the pillars of the Drag Race legacy all competing against one another felt more like a fever dream rather than something that could actually happen. What's more is that the winners of the first 8 seasons held a lot more power to them than the ones that came after. These were the true building blocks. The ones where RuPaul and the rest of production needed to be sure that they were picking the right person to represent their brand. After all, there wasn't yearly spin-offs like All Stars that would be able to distract everyone if they got it wrong. These queens, if anything, truly were the top of the pyramid in terms of status, at least for the year of their reign, and the near future too. Unfortunately, All Star 7 only featured 2 queens from the single-digit editions, Raja from season 3 and Jinx Monsoon from season 5. While these were very clearly iconic winners from the OG seasons, there was a lack of overall presence from the cast, largely because a good amount of the contestants were queens that got their crown from an All-Stars, such as Monet Exchange, Trinity the Tuck, Shea Coulee. Don't get me wrong, these 3 did hold their own, but at the end of the day, they lost their original seasons, which sort of damages the quality / power attached to their legacy. Yes, they are still deserving winners, but they only became winners after a second attempt rather than the first time entering the ring. So for one reason or another, they were sort of filler. Then of course we had Evie Oddly, Jada Essence Hall, and The Vivienne. Each of them won their seasons on their first try. But the only negative attached here was A, the fact that they came from the new era of the franchise, Jada having won season 12 and not having a lot of time to tour before putting her hat back into the ring. And in the case of Evie Oddly, many felt that she had a bit of a rough run on season 11. Regardless, the reason I bring this all up is to bring home the point that when it came down to the first all winners, the cast was far different from what fans had actually been daydreaming about for a decade, with only Raja and Jinx being able to actually represent the original single-digit era of the series. Which brings us, of course, back to the hard truth that we need to accept. The first 5 seasons of the series were key pillars. BeBe Zahara Benet was the first queen to ever win RuPaul's Drag Race, and lucky for us, she's been such a great representation for the series in the 17 years that have passed since then. Plus, given that she got to reintroduce herself to the world in All Stars 3, it made sense why she wouldn't end up being chosen to be a part of the first cast of the All Winners edition. That being said, it's season 2 where we start to encounter problems. games. Tyra Sanchez was the queen that won season 2 and had an extremely controversial post-Drag Race run. In fact, there's so many things that have transpired to the point where you could probably create a timeline where every 2 years she got herself into some type of drama. As of recently, for instance, shortly after it was announced that the Vivienne had passed away, Tyra took to social media to essentially repeatedly make fun of the Vivienne's death. It was to the point where it spanned for almost a week, feeling that it was divine intervention that those that quote wronged her met their ultimate demise. It resulted in Rupaul herself posting a TikTok of a clip from season 2 where she slaps Tyra in the face, a clear indicator that she had truly crossed the line. Cause up until then, Ru and World of Wonder tended to avoid addressing any of Tyra's shenanigans. And if you watched All Stars 10 on the Snatch Game episode where Raven was a guest, at the end of it, they ended up announcing her as the winner for Snatch Game, going as far as to literally put a crown on her head. This was very obviously production, giving the audience a wink wink nudge nudge that Tyra, essentially to them, was no longer someone that they'll uphold as a member of the winner's circle, because to them moving forward, Raven was the true winner of season 2. I actually wanted to take the opportunity to ask you guys a question. If you've been a longtime fan of my channel, then you'd know that one of the first videos of mine to ever take off was one called Erasing the Legacy of James Ross, aka Tyra Sanchez. It was a deep dive into the history that transpired both during the airing of season 2 and the challenges that she faced in her postseason run, especially in regards to how the fanbase treated her, the lack of support from World of Wonder, and the constant statements by Raven herself invalidating her win. The video in itself didn't excuse any of Tyra's behavior throughout her career, and instead offered a perspective into how things turned out the way they did, and why she felt so isolated from the rest of the winners in the franchise. Ultimately though, it was after Tyra began to make fun of the death of the Vivienne in January 2025 that I decided to make the video private. Out of respect for the Vivienne and not wanting to make it seem like I was still actively wanting people to see another side of Tyra's story. Regardless, given that the video originally went live over 3 years ago, my question is whether I should keep the video private or make it public again for those that want more context around the backstory of the season 2 winner. Let me know what you guys think below. Now, back to the main topic at hand. It'd be one thing if the season 2 winner was the sole outcast of the OG seasons to have tainted their legacy to the point of no redemption. Unfortunately though, just 2 years later, Sharon Needles would be crowned the winner of season 4. What's interesting about Sharon's win is that it came with the first edition of the series to truly start to make waves in terms of a growing attention from the general LGBT audience. Sharon herself, when compared to her predecessors, offered something completely different and new when it came to pushing the boundaries of what being a drag queen could be. And it's hard to deny the impact that she created in the emerging next generation of drag artists. Keep in mind that at the time, pageant queens largely dominated the scene. So when this alternative drag queen was able to be crowned the next drag superstar, it inadvertently validated the drag of so many people that were considered less than or not taken as seriously as those that stuck with the pageant rulebook of drag. You could argue that Raja also deviated from the normal expectations that people had, but even she maintained the baseline when it came to sticking towards a certain fashion aesthetic. Sharon's drag truly did bend the rules. Along with that, she became an instant fan favorite, even being voted the #1 queen that fans wanted to see return for All Stars 1, which she ultimately rejected since she felt it was unfair for her to come back after she had already won the crown. If you'd like to know more details behind why Sharon would end up getting cancelled, you can watch this video I made a while back. It'll be linked below. Yet to summarize, Sharon's most problematic behaviors involved racist comments, child abuse allegations, and other inflammatory statements. For starters, her racist behavior went as far back as during the filming of season 4, where Sharon often would call other queens the N-word, even in front of members from production. And despite being called out on it multiple times by other queens in the cast that she wasn't allowed to say that word, she continued doing so and was never reprimanded by any member of the production team. Despite this, she was edited as this sort of underdog that was hated on because she was so different from everyone else. This shows that even though there was clear warning signs for why she wasn't the best fit to represent the brand, she was still chosen as the winner of season 4. What spawned was years of her essentially feeling that she owned the world. There are countless stories from queens who spoke about what it was like to share the dressing room with her when doing shows. Even Bob the Drag Queen mentioned several times on her podcast that Sharon had constantly used the N-word around her before Bob was Ru Girl, but that she felt that she couldn't call her out on it because everybody loved Sharon. That being said, there was a lot of people online that would call her out on it. and how it was wrong for someone that claimed to believe in social justice to actively use words that offended so many people. Regardless, this behavior continued on for about a decade, and it was shortly after the 2020 pandemic that complaints from the fanbase really started to go beyond just a few people online, and elevated into the whole general fanbase, essentially canceling Sharon from being included in any future big opportunities that involve Drag Race queens. It's why we no longer see her in things like Work the World, or opportunities like Vegas residency, or simple things like the pit stop. Along with this, there was also allegations of abuse against an underage individual at the time, which I did discuss in my original video about Sharon, but I ended up editing out the mention of that from the final video. But you can read up on it on this article that will be linked below should you want to inquire. Looking at the bigger picture, Sharon's cancellation resulted in sort of another season being tainted. I mean, there's countless iconic moments that don't include her on that specific season, yet it's hard to really avoid the fact that she was front and center in most of the key events, or that ultimately the conclusion of it all resulted in her winning the title. The difference between Tyra Sanchez and Sharon Needles' post-Drag Race careers is that Tyra started off on the right foot, but dealt with a fanbase that did not like her, a production that didn't really uplift her in the years that followed, until ultimately spiraling down a path that just no longer justifies any redemption whatsoever, with most of the things she's done being just absolutely disgusting. On the other hand, Sharon never started off on the right foot. Even in the filming of season 4, she was behaving really inappropriately towards other contestants, specifically with the use of the N-word, which DragRace has talked about in interviews since then. Yet Sharon went on to have a flourishing career where she actively justified her behavior every step of the way, only really facing true consequences almost a decade after winning the season.
Right, I'm sorry, I said something clear, so like not another story, but maybe something...
No, I have nothing to say.
Okay. And you're not using the N-word and issuing a public apology about that?
But you're not going to like decide...
I'm not going to answer anything definitive.
Oh.
Especially when it's a little, sounds slightly attacking. So that's why I'm not going to say it. You're not going to bark at me to say something that I'm not even sure about. I'm not sure about anything.
Will you stop using the N-word though, as you...
Oh yeah, and that's really not, the word means freaking, I think language only has the power that we give it, and
since then, they've both been sort of buried from the legacy of the franchise. Along with that, the concept of a winner has also changed drastically. Back then, there was so few of them that it allowed for their presence to hold a lot more power. Yet given that every year that passes now, we get like 6 winners added to the circle, the pool of winners has only skyrocketed. So the space left behind by Tyra and Sharon no longer feels like something that's impossible to fill. On another note, there's been so many other instances where production actually dodged the bullet for not crowning someone who many felt at the time was the most deserving to get the title. For instance, on All Stars 3, when Spenda La Creme eliminated herself and the finale was between Trixie, BB, Shangela, and Kennedy, it would end up going down in infamy that Shangela was, quote, robbed by not being voted into the final 2, and the crown instead going to Trixie Mattel with Kennedy Davenport as the runner-up. Yet imagine the disaster that it would have meant to have yet another winner that no longer can't even be mentioned. And don't get me started on the whole Sherry Pie situation with season 12, where she made it all the way to the end. Yes, they were able to edit her out of the season, and nobody really remembers Sherry since she's just this mysterious presence that we see here and there throughout the episodes. But imagine if her victims hadn't come out until like a year or 2 after the season aired. It would have resulted in Sherry possibly winning the crown and being able to actually create a fan base for herself. Yet thankfully, they were able to nip that in the bud as soon as possible. All that being said, no matter what, we can never go back in time and change what transpired. Some queens may always be the quote-unquote winner of that season, but in the long run, they'll be remembered as losers. Yet, what are your thoughts when it comes to World of Wonder not always getting it right with the queen that they choose to win a given season? Who are some of the other contestants that they actually dodged a bullet on by not giving them the win? Let me know in the comments.
Thanks again to Fume for sponsoring today's video. Take a step that over 500,000 people have already done and scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description and use code GreenGay to get a free fume topper when you order the journey pack and support the channel in the process.
I want to take a moment to thank my patrons, which thank you so much for always actively supporting me, even though I don't really upload that much exclusive content to the Patreon, which I am trying to change, but regardless, you guys have stuck by me. So in the pink squad, we have Matthew Burns, Gay Uncle, Sarit Tish, Natasha DeLeon, Las Pothitas, Cool Gao Nan, and Jet Sam Adams. In the gay squad, we have lone member Christine Gregory. And in the green squad, we have Cayman Rider Furry, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch, But a Keek, Jack Beck, Galeria Gomez, Sarah G, Scarlet Rose, Boiled Peanut, Not an Omelette, But an Egg, Max Whale, Dea, Dea, and Niall O'Heron. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, you can support me on Patreon. The link will be in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Give this video a like and comment below to help me out with the algorithm. I'll see you guys next time.